back for more Resident Evil, folks. Glad it didn't take 6 years this time to talk about another game, but I suppose this one doesn't really count because what we're discussing today is a remake of Resident Evil 2, which I covered about half a year ago. Man, has it been that long already? Well, let's take a look and see how much they've improved it.
Josh, can you hear me? Hello?
Nathan, what are you doing here?
Well, I discovered that you're reviewing the Resident Evil 2 remake, coincidentally the same time I've been doing my Let's Play games.
Your point?
My point is that you're riding on my coattail.
What coattail? Dude, everyone and their grandmother's already talked about this game.
It doesn't matter because I was here before you.
You sound like such a preschooler when you talk like that. Alright, tell you what, why don't we do this review together, and then that way, alongside your Let's Play, you'll have double the coverage over me. Sound fair?
I suppose so.
Okay, good. So then let's discuss why this remake is such a big deal right now. If you watched my review of the original Resident Evil 2, you'll know that I found it to be an interesting experience despite the hardware limitations and tank controls, and as well as many others, it's one of my favorite old school Resident Evils. If you're interested in seeing my full thoughts on it, I'll leave a card at the top for you to click on. However, for 20 years, fans of the 1998 classic shouted and demanded for a remake with the same treatment that the first game was given back in 2002, but we saw nothing of the sort until right out of nowhere in 2015 when Capcom announced that a remake was in development, and we wouldn't see footage of any kind until 2018. As expected, the reactions to the Resident Evil 2 remake were largely positive, and a part of that was because of its return to the claustrophobic horror design that made the series popular in the first place, and what most of the sequels were severely lacking. And like many others, I was rather excited to play this when Kingdom Hearts 3 wasn't constantly on the mind.
My earliest memories of Resident Evil would be the first film. As much as I really enjoyed it, looking at it back now, it was kind of cheesy and not to what the original game intended, really. But then after watching the first film and then playing the first game, I really enjoyed it, and not only that, it kind of scared the living daylights out of me. However, for Resident Evil 2, I remembered my cousins play it back in 2001, I think, and it was really terrifying, even though the graphics back then wasn't really good. And then after that, I think it was Resident Evil 3 or 4, one of the two, and then years later I stopped playing it altogether, really. And then when I found out that Resident Evil 7 came out, I thought, you know what, I'll try this game out, see what it's like, because for years, horror's always been this third-person experience, whereas Resident Evil 7, you're experiencing this with your own eyes, and it got my love back again for horror games, as much as what Outlast did, and PT, Slenderman, all those horror games that were all on a first-person perspective.
The story for REmake 2 is note for note the same as the original, so we won't need to go into much detail with that. It's pretty cool that it still takes place in the late 90s, and there's still bits of cheesiness here and there, but not on the same level as the original, and that's thanks to the better voice acting and more serious tone. I don't mind the game playing itself a bit more straight though, since there's enough goofy moments and awkward exchanges to not totally ruin it. Spoiler warning, but the one that immediately comes to mind is the ending where Sherry moves on from her mother's death like it was nothing as she requests that Leon and Claire adopt her. The hell? What a sly kid. Just like before, you have the option to choose who you want to play as first between Leon and Claire, and then move on to the other character once you finish that campaign. Jumping the gun a bit, this is how you do a great remake. It's so familiar yet so different in a lot of ways that it almost feels like an entirely new game altogether. The streets of Raccoon City are unfortunately much shorter than they were in the original, but I love stepping into the police station again in all of its HD glory. That was a wonderful feeling.
Indeed it was, and the graphics in general are pretty damn amazing. To see how far technology has evolved over the past 20 years is staggering, and the blood and gore is now oozing with detail as well as out of this guy's lower half. Graphics aren't the only thing that changed though. The controls have been revamped to feel more like traditional third-person shooters. Gone are the days of moving like a tank. Now you can move in any direction you want to. A feature in the series that started with Resident Evil 6, and you aim and shoot from an over-shoulder perspective. If you can find them, the guns can also be fitted with modifiers again, and even Claire can equip some now for her weapons, unlike the original game.
Just be sure that you have enough space in your loadout because the limited inventory system is back from the old school entries, and with how much stuff is in this game, it fills up very quickly. Though a brilliant addition to the remake are the new pouches you can find that give an extra 2 slots with each one. There's a real satisfying crunch to the weapons this time around. Headshots are nice and juicy, and thank the stars, the knives actually don't suck. It's got durability now, but there's plenty of them spread around the game, and these as well as grenades can be used to not only do decent damage to an oncoming group of zombies, They can also act as get out of jail free cards if a zombie manages to grab hold of you at the cost of not hurting them as much. Exploit this as often as you can because zombies can take a serious beating in this remake. It is ridiculous how many bullets are needed to take out just one zombie. One headshot with your basic pistol won't be enough this time. He will shake it off and still try to grab you. Critical headshots are possible for easier kills, but unless you're using more powerful weapons like a shotgun or magnum revolver, it's all down to chance. And on top of the returning lack of ammo that the classic games love to challenge you with, zombies are a much bigger threat than they've ever been before. Look at this guy, I shoot him and he tilts his head at me like, really? Bitch, please. I'm gonna eat you now. Even if you're damn certain that the zombie's down for the count, give it a few minutes and it may start getting back up. There's no sure way to tell whether or not you've actually killed something, and it's so good at keeping you on edge the whole way through, especially when coming across lickers. Holy hell, these guys are far more aggressive than they were previously. It's hard to keep track of them with how much they jump around and claw swipe at every opportunity. Until this remake, I had no idea that they could be easily avoided just by walking past them, since they only detect sound. Was this always in the original? Consider my mind blown if it is.
Explorative types will also be happy to know that the map system is a bit better than it was in the original. In addition to showing where exactly you are, it also pinpoints items and puzzle elements that you've discovered, which is a fantastic prevention from being too lost. It'll still happen sometimes because this is the most awkwardly built police station in the history of mankind, but you don't have to memorize everything like you did in the original.
And as for the puzzles themselves, some return from the original but may have been slightly tweaked, and a large portion of them are entirely new. All of them can be pretty well designed and good at making you scratch your head on a few occasions. That is, if you can even see anything past your flashlight. The remake doesn't have nearly as many lit up areas as the original did, which is a surefire way to rack up those nerves. I'm not a fan of how Leon's and Claire's campaigns in the remake don't differentiate from each other that much outside of a few reversals, but what I can say is that they both deliver a greater atmosphere and a hell of a lot of scary surprises, even with the briefer moments like when controlling Ada and Sherry. Sherry's in particular was a whole new kind of terror, playing as a little girl while she tries to hide from the pursuing giant Chief Irons. Jesus Christ, that got tense. Ada's section was okay too, but not quite the same. She mainly just hacks into a few things to try and save Leon. But I guess speaking of chasing, let's talk about the Tyrant, who apparently in Resident Evil 2 was initially called Mr. X. In the original, this guy only appeared in the B scenarios, and despite being easily avoidable by just going to the next room, he was still pretty intimidating in his own way. Now he appears no matter who you're playing as and will quite frequently hunt you down.
Quite frequently?
Yeah, by that I mean all the freaking time.
Oh my god, Mr. X. It's bad enough that bullets against zombies are about as effective as a cotton bud, but now we also have a trench coat fanatic to worry about who thinks giving fashion tips means punching your skull out of your head. It is possible to shake him off temporarily, but not without wasting a lot of resources. And I mean a lot of resources.
Yeah, you could be on the other side of the police station, but he'll still hear you firing your guns.
And will immediately charge in your direction with those loud booming footsteps that you can hear just outside. Josh, are you okay there?
I'm afraid to step out. This wasn't the best change for me personally. I get why some people do like it. It's a great way to keep you on your toes, and the heavy use of sound to indicate when he's nearby makes for some of the best scares the series has ever had. But when you look past that, and if you're like me who just wants to explore the police station with a little more ease, this is kind of an issue. I'm here trying to solve this puzzle that takes a bit of time, but this asshole comes in to ruin my day, and now I have to circle back around to the room again just for another shot at the puzzle. Mr. X thankfully and rather suddenly disappears when you get to the sewers and the laboratory, where he only comes back as the final boss for Leon's campaign, but his encounters for me were 50% scary, 50% frustrating. Autosaving is also not that frequent, which made me rage quit during this part in Claire's campaign where I lost about half an hour of progress because of Mr. X. If I wanted to continuously be on the run from something I can't kill, I'll play Resident Evil 3. Boss fights have at least also improved quite a bit with the modern technology and the newer control scheme. For the most part, the goal is still to continuously shoot at them, but now you've got to make sure it's in the right spot, and the bosses will now be charging and attacking in all sorts of directions. The final boss on Claire's side especially cranks this up to 11. I barely scraped by in this fight with the amount of ammo I had and how much of a bullet sponge he was. Yet the true final boss was somehow easier than this fight. You can kill him by just using a standard pistol, and thankfully it does away with the problem I had in the original where you weren't supplied with a little more ammo beforehand. Now you're given enough handgun bullets to take him down. Much better. The only boss I was slightly disappointed with was the crocodile. There wasn't much thinking to this one. You just run away until it idiotically chomps on an explosive and you blow it up. I know that's technically what you do in the original as well, but it just didn't feel quite the same.
The remake also gives you a fair few extra modes to play with once you've finished the main story. Most of these were in the original too, but they had some absolutely ludicrous requirements to unlock them, like completing the game 8 times in a row. First off, we have a returning Hunk mode, where you play as Hunk, one of the Umbrella's security officers, and pretty much every enemy in the game is present and accounted for to make sure they bite your head off. You have a limited amount of supplies to make it out alive, but if you somehow manage to survive all of that, you'll unlock Tofu mode. You play as a giant piece of tofu with knives because why not? Ghost Survivors mode was just recently added as DLC, and it's the same sort of thing, survive for as long as you can to try and reach the end of the stage, only with minor characters that we saw for only maybe a minute or two in the game.
Paid DLC is a little more basic than that. It's just a bunch of costume changes and the ability to swap to the original soundtrack, which surprisingly still works really well. The save room music was always one of my favorite pieces, and I'm glad to see it in a modern Resident Evil game. Hell, if you're feeling really brave or just nostalgic, you can always do hardcore mode, where you not only die in basically 1 or 2 hits, but saving also requires using ink ribbons again. I did not think those would come back in this day and age, but consider yourself a Resident Evil pro if you manage to beat this. Why stop there though? Put on the original outfits if you really want to take yourself back. Or literally go back in time with the 1998 models. Oh my god, this feels so out of place. Resident Evil 2 gives you so much replayability, and with the campaigns lasting 5 to 6 hours each just on initial playthroughs, it's perfectly digestible. Resident Evil 2 is what a remake should be. It changes what needed to be changed, adds enough difference to separate it from the original, and just making the whole experience better and more welcoming. It doesn't get absolutely everything right, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy this more than the original overall. The game may also lose a bit of its magic after the first run with both characters, but it'll still be a damn good time no matter how many playthroughs you choose to do. Don't mistake me though, the original does have its moments too, and it was kind of a tough call to decide which was better. As to whether or not I would recommend the remake to series newcomers, that's tricky because the persistent zombies does make the journey more difficult compared to the other entries, which may turn them away slightly. If you don't mind the challenge though, then yeah, I definitely say go for it. You won't regret spending your time and money on this wonderful remake, and it looks like it's selling incredibly well too. On top of that, if there's enough fan demand, Capcom will decide to remake Resident Evil 3, which I would love to play. Here's hoping that happens very soon.
I really enjoyed this remake so much, and to be honest with you, I can't wait to play more of these remakes that they're hoping to do in the future, and I can't wait to see what they're going to use in the Resident Evil engine on other games as well. So it may be possible that not only are they doing a remake to Resident Evil 3, but they might make another Resident Evil game. We don't know what the future of Resident Evil is going to be, but I think what Capcom have done so far is that they're not doing what other games are doing at the moment. They're just sticking to their own guns, doing the complete opposite of what mainstream games are doing, and just releasing games that are just mind-blowing and not only stupid but brilliant at the same time.
Well, it's been nice having you, Nathan. Thanks for joining me today.
Not a problem, buddy. I'll be here next time when you try and steal my thunder.
I'm sure that probably won't be long then.
What was that?
Oh, nothing. You want to just plug your channel real quick there?
Alright, okay. So my channel is Life of Nathan. If you go onto twitch.tv/Life of Nathan, I'm hoping to stream now about 3 times a week. And I'll also be uploading all those streams onto my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/lifeofnathan1 if you do miss me playing during my Twitch streams, basically. And most of the time you'll see the odd few videos of me doing gaming and chill, where I just talk absolute nonsense while playing video games, or probably when I'm playing online from Apex Legends, Battle Royale games, and other online games as well. So yeah, that is what I do. I focus a lot on games, but on both walkthroughs and online playing.
Right, back to the Devil May Cry reviews we go then, and of course it has to be the worst one in the series, so I guess when we return, we'll look at Devil May Cry 2.
Yeah, while you're playing Devil May Cry 2, I'm just going to be playing Devil May Cry 5, because I'm 3 games ahead of you, baby doll!
Yeah, you have fun with that, buddy. Thanks for watching, and God help me. Hey guys, I just want to give a quick thanks to TrisGhost who did my new anime portrait. I absolutely love it. Thank you very much for doing that. And if you'd like an anime portrait of yourself, then you can go to her Sketchmob account. You can also check her Twitter account. And she also has a DeviantArt page if you'd like to look at some of her other work. I shall put all of her links in the description below. Thanks again, TrisGhost, and I shall come back to you again in the future.